Over 20 years ago, I was at World Youth Day in Denver, Colorado in 1993 when Pope St. John Paul the Great visited the United States. In his all too familiar Polish accent, the Holy Father said, and departed from his text, "The family is under attack. The family is under attack." And according to Italian moral theologian Cardinal Carlo Papara, he once received a letter from Sister Lucia of Fatima, Portugal, who the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to in 1917, in which Sister Lucia wrote, quote, "The final battle between our Lord and the devil will be over marriage and family," end quote. Whether it's John Paul II or Sister Lucia's letter, these themes are consistent. This makes today's gospel on Jesus' teaching on marriage and family so needed for us in the 21st century. There are two simple main points from the gospel on Jesus and his church's teaching on marriage and family. And they happen to be the two main purposes of marriage and the marital act. The unitive purpose, the complementarity of the man and the woman in marriage until death, and the procreative purpose, the openness to children and fruitfulness in marriage. And I realize that for us today, even among Catholics, the Church's teachings on marriage and family can be difficult, but it's not impossible. With God, all things are possible. Now, regarding the first point about the complementarity of the man and the woman in marriage, the unitive purpose, or the two becoming one flesh, Jesus pointed us to the beginning of creation. God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. Jesus affirmed what we see in the first reading, where it is written in the book of Genesis, God will make a suitable partner for the man in marriage. In Pope John Paul II's theology of the body, this exclusive suitability is a complementarity of the man and the woman, a natural unity between them. It is natural or is a type of natural law. The suitability of one man and one woman in marriage is inscribed in nature already. Jesus reveals that God is the author of marriage, not the state, not the federal government. The state's role, rather, is to uphold the natural law, not redefine it. What God has joined, let no human being, and that means let no state or judges, must separate. Additionally, in the Judeo-Christian worldview, the man and the woman share a fundamental equality in their dignity. Just as Eve came from Adam's rib, his side, so too does the church, we his body and blood, we his bride, come from Jesus as Jesus' rib, his side, was pierced, and he slept the sleep of death on the cross. The man and woman are side by side, equal in dignity, even though different in function. God instituted marriage, but Jesus elevated marriage to the dignity of a sacrament. This is why, dear brothers and sisters, for us Catholics, we must be married in the church instead of just being married civilly or just before the justice of the peace or just in Reno or even just living together. It's called cohabitation without marriage. The vow or consent of the man and the woman makes the marriage. It makes the sacrament. In the case of two baptized people before a priest, or even a deacon that is delegated by the pastor, it is the sacrament of holy matrimony. But in the case of two Catholics only civilly married, in the eyes of God, they are not properly married yet. For those Catholics in the state of only a civil marriage, this gospel is an invitation to be married in the church and have your marriage convalidated with a priest in a very beautiful, simple ceremony. And for couples living together, even if they have kids already, secular research studies have shown that the rate of divorce, spousal abuse, and infidelity or cheating on each other is actually higher than those who are married. So this too is an invitation for those couples cohabiting to be married in the church. When we are married in the church, God pours forth his graces upon the marriage and family in ways that do not occur in other ways. So this is the unitive purpose of marriage. The second main purpose of marriage and the marital act is the procreative purpose, the procreation and education of children. In the gospel, Jesus said, "Let the children come unto me," after being indignant or angry when his apostles did not welcome children. Thus, all sexual activity belongs in marriage. Notice that the church here doesn't just teach that sex belongs in marriage, but all sexual activity belongs only to married people who have taken a vow before the community. This is called chastity, not just abstinence, but chastity. We must prepare not only our children for chaste, faithful Christian marriages, but we must prepare ourselves who are married should also practice chastity too within marriage. The unitive and the procreative aspects of marital love cannot be separated. What God has joined, man must not put asunder. Contraception and sterilization are contrary to the plan of God for marriage and family. Contraception deliberately violates the mutual self-giving of a man and a woman as designed by God. The church isn't saying that conception must occur with each marital act, but rather that when married couples do engage in the marital act, that it is open to life. And for those that need to space their children's births, couples may turn to natural means such as natural family planning, NFP, which respects the woman's fertility cycle. Secular studies have shown that spousal abuse and divorce rates are actually very, very low. It's actually just like 1 or 2% for those who practice NFP. Did you know that up until 1930, all of Christianity, including our separated brothers and sisters, taught that contraception was against God's law? Then the Protestants, one after the other, They voted to change this 2,000-year-old teaching. It is only the Catholic Church that affirmed that contraception was against God's plan for marriage and family. In 1968, Blessed Pope Paul VI wrote a letter called Humanae Vitae. In Humanae Vitae, the Holy Father beautifully taught that married love is total, it is human and faithful, it is mutually exclusive to the two and fruitful. The Holy Father warned that contraception would promote marital infidelity and a general lowering of morality, especially among youth. He foresaw that men, through contraception, would lose respect for women, not as equal partners, but as someone to use to just satisfy their own needs. Governments would disregard the dignity of the human person and basic human rights because they will be treated as numbers, And the contraceptive mentality would eventually lead to abortion, and as we see today, human trafficking, pornography, domestic abuse, sexual slavery, especially in the Middle East, and violence, not just around the world, but violence in our own, close to home in our own city, especially among our youth. At Fatima, Portugal, when the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to 3 shepherd children, she said that many marriages do not please our Lord, and most souls are lost because of sins of the flesh than for any other reason. So against this flood of modern-day assaults on the family, let Christians rejoice as we sang in the Mass this afternoon. Let us rejoice and be glad in the good news of God's plan for marriage, sexuality, and the family. So in summary, the unitive purpose of marriage and the procreative purpose of marriage are one and the same and are united. The sacrament of holy matrimony will help us lead marriages that are pleasing to God, and as we sang in the responsorial psalm, may the Lord bless us all the days of our lives. Our Lady of Fatima, pray for us. The child being presented for baptism, please come up.